All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest names in cybersecurity, a company that grew insanely fast, the cloud security platform Wiz. If you work in the cloud, you've definitely heard of them. And we're going to break down exactly what they do and why they made such a huge splash.
But first, let me ask you this. What if the most dangerous threat in your entire cloud setup isn't some big, obvious flaw? What if it's a hidden chain of tiny, seemingly harmless issues, a risk that your existing tools literally cannot see? Just keep that thought in the back of your mind.
Okay, here's the game plan for today. We'll start with the old cloud security problems, the headaches everyone used to have. Then we'll get into the agentless approach that completely changed the game. After that, we'll look under the hood at how Wiz actually sees everything, see how people use it in the real world, and wrap up with the single biggest takeaway you need to remember.
To really get why Wiz felt so revolutionary, you first have to understand the world before it existed. And let me tell you, the old way of doing cloud security was, well, it was a real pain. Just look at the difference here. The old school way meant you had to install a piece of software, an agent, on every single virtual machine. You had to stick sensors in all your containers, the deployments were super complex, maintenance was a constant chore, and all of this stuff actually slowed your systems down. The new approach, the one Wiz championed, is completely agentless. It connects to your cloud account one time, centrally, and that's it. Deployment is crazy fast, it's simple, and there's absolutely zero performance impact. And this new way of thinking, this agentless model, is exactly what we mean by a game changer. It's the big idea that took Wiz from a startup to an industry giant in record time. So what does agentless really mean in simple terms? Well, it's a way of connecting directly to the main brain of your cloud provider, their APIs, and scanning everything from the outside. You don't have to install a single thing on your actual workloads. Think of it like a building inspection, where the inspector can see everything, structural integrity, electrical, plumbing, without ever having to step foot inside. And the benefits are just massive. No agents to update and manage, no clunky sidecars to deploy with your containers, no background daemons or kernel modules slowing things down. It just connects and it just works, with none of the usual friction and zero performance drag. That simplicity, it's everything. Okay, so if it's not using agents, how on earth does Wiz see everything? This is where we get into its core technology. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like an all-seeing X-ray for your cloud. It's a pretty elegant 5-step process. First, you connect Wiz to your cloud account, AWS, Azure, you name it, with a secure read-only permission. Second, Wiz scans literally everything: VMs, containers, networks, identities, data, the whole shebang. Third, and this is the magic, it builds a complete map of how everything is connected. Fourth, it uses that map to find the actual paths an attacker could take. And finally, number 5, it tells you which of those paths are the most dangerous, so you know exactly what to fix first. This quote just nails the whole concept. Wiz doesn't just give you a giant list of problems. It finds what it calls toxic combinations. So a server vulnerability by itself might be a low priority issue. But what if that same server is also exposed to the internet, has really high permissions, and it can talk to a database full of sensitive customer information? That is a toxic combination. That's a real attack path, and that's the stuff Wiz finds for you. Okay, so the technology is cool. We get how it works, but what does this actually let security teams do day to day? Let's talk about putting this vision into action. So the platform covers a lot of ground: vulnerability management, Kubernetes, you name it. But what you really need to know is that it is an absolute beast in 2 key areas: identity security, also known as CIM, which is all about figuring out who can do what, and data security, or DSPM, which is about finding and protecting your most sensitive data. For a lot of big companies, those 2 things are the main reason they buy Wiz. So what does this look like in the trenches? Will teams use it to find a database full of sensitive info that was accidentally left open to the public internet? They use it to finally make sense of all their permissions and see who actually has the keys to the kingdom. And most importantly, they use it to prioritize which vulnerabilities to fix, not based on some generic score, but based on whether an attacker could really use it in their specific environment. So how does Wiz stack up against everyone else? Well, for that agentless visibility, identity security, and especially the attack path analysis, it's widely seen as the best. But, and this is a big but, look at runtime protection. It gets a none. Wiz is not designed to stop an attack while it's happening. For that, you'd look at a tool like Aqua Security, which uses agents to actively block threats. It's a classic trade-off. Do you want the best visibility or do you want active prevention? Let's just boil it down. The strengths are undeniable. It's agentless, it's fast, it's incredible at identity and data, and the visibility you get is just massive. The limitations are just as clear. It doesn't do runtime protection. It's not cheap, especially for huge companies. And you have to remember, it's a detection tool, not a blocking tool. It's the world's best smoke detector. It's not the sprinkler system that puts out the fire. So, after all that, what's the one thing you absolutely need to remember about Wiz? Let's distill everything we've talked about down to one key idea. If you walk away with nothing else, remember this. Wiz is the X-ray machine for your cloud. That's it. It lets you see straight through all the layers of complexity to find the hidden fractures, the weak spots, and those toxic connections that create your real, actual risk. And this X-ray vision gives you some serious powers. The power to see every single risk, not just some of them. The power to understand how all those little risks connect, to create dangerous attack paths. The power to ignore thousands of minor alerts and focus on the handful of issues that actually matter. And ultimately, the power to truly protect your cloud at scale. And that brings us right back to the question we started with. Wiz solves the visibility problem. It lets you see everything. But in doing so, it forces you to answer a much better, much more important question. Now that you can see every risk, which one are you going to fix first? And that, right there, is the entire point. It's all about prioritization.